What's up, Nashville? I am Beau. This is the Free Speech Podcast presented by Beechwood Commercial Real Estate Brokerage. Your broker if you are a commercial real estate seller in the Southeast that absolutely wants to maximize the price they get for their property. Look to Beechwood Commercial Real Estate Brokerage. Now let's get into the show. We've got some very interesting stories to share with you today. I'm quickly going to give you an overview of what we're about to discuss, and then we'll get into it. Our first story, slumping Starbucks unveils its turnaround strategy. Most folks have a relationship with Starbucks, so I think this is worthy of opening the show. I'm going to walk you through what the new Starbucks CEO who came over from Chipotle, how he plans to turn around slumping Starbucks. Next, Nashville drops from the #1 commercial real estate investment market. Nashville was #1 on the list 3 years in a row, the first time that's ever happened. And this year they have fallen out of that top spot. I'll let you know where we've landed. Next, Denny's set to shutter 150 restaurants as U.S. dining industry struggles. I'll tell you that story. Jelly Roll's new bar. We now know where it's going. I'm going to give you all of the details. What's driving the return to work requirements, also known as the return to the office requirements? Why is that happening now? I'm going to present you with a reason that you probably hadn't previously contemplated. Next, commercial real estate activity is picking up. I'm going to walk you through the hottest sectors for the coming year. Next, I'm going to very quickly give you a residential housing update. Of course, we are not experts in residential housing. That is not the business that we're in. Regardless, I think it's an interesting story how the value of residential homes in this country continues to go up month after month. I'll let you know where we're at now. And lastly, TGI Fridays is closing 1/4 of their locations, and bankruptcy may come next. All right, let's get into it. Slumping Starbucks. For 3 straight quarters, Starbucks has reported declining sales. Many of the coming changes are meant to help Starbucks achieve a smaller goal, delivering a customized drink to the customer in under 4 minutes. Right now, about half of their current transactions happen within that threshold. So they got half of their drinks coming out in 4 minutes or less. Their focus going forward is to get that other half out in 4 minutes or less, among other things. I'm going to walk you through all of their plans to turn around Starbucks. As Starbucks focuses on the turnaround, the company is also planning fewer new locations and renovations in fiscal 2025 to free up capital. One of the things they're doing to turn around Starbucks is ending the disorder of mobile order and pay. Starbucks customers have become used to walking into a cafe and seeing a counter crowded with mobile orders. Mobile orders account for more than 30% of all Starbucks U.S. transactions. I think that's interesting. 30% of all transactions at Starbucks are ordered from a mobile device. Starbucks is working to improve the accuracy of the app's timing so customers know when their drinks are ready. Plus, he wants to better separate mobile order pickups from in-person ordering inside the restaurants and curtail how much customers can customize their drinks. So what they're going to do is they're going to have a separate pickup spot for mobile orders and a separate pickup spot for someone that orders mobile but is planning to stay in store to enjoy the product. They're also going to limit how much you can customize their drinks while ordering from the app. Next, They're cutting back on an overly complex menu. The coffee chain needs to focus on fewer, better offerings. Slimming down the menu will make it easier for baristas to make every drink consistently. It should also improve the speed of service since they'll have fewer drink recipes to remember. Next, they want to make their cafes more personal. As part of the quote, back to Starbucks plan, Starbucks wants the company's locations to feel like third places for customers to work and socialize outside of their homes and offices. This means reintroducing more personal touches like serving coffee in ceramic mugs to customers who choose to linger in cafes. Starbucks is also reviewing its store designs with a focus on bringing back more comfortable seating and amenities. Next, they're bringing back the condiment bars. In the early days of the COVID pandemic, Starbucks banished its condiment bars behind the counter. Since then, when customers want to add milk or sugar to their drinks, even a simple drip coffee, they have to ask baristas directly. This is inconvenient and this is slowing baristas down. Condiment bars are coming back. Next, they're going to focus on better staffing in cafes. They want to make sure that cafes are properly staffed from the busy morning rush to shoulder hours, leading up to and away from peak times. That makes sense. Have enough people working to get drinks out faster. They also are going to take a new approach to marketing. They want its marketing to target a broader audience than Starbucks Rewards members and to showcase the quality of Starbucks coffee. Customers can also expect to see fewer deals as part of the marketing shift. Discount-driven offers are ineffective and can overburden baristas. So they're going to try to attract folks that aren't already Starbucks Reward members, and they're also going to limit the amount of offers that they provide a discount on. Dairy alternatives finally won't cost extra. Starbucks will finally drop the extra charge for its milk substitutes. And lastly, more broadly, Starbucks isn't planning to change North American prices through the next fiscal year, which ends around early October, in the hopes of improving consumers' perception of its pricing. So Starbucks has gotten the reputation for being expensive. They're going to at least hold the line on pricing for another year as they work towards overcoming that perception. So a lot of very interesting changes coming to Starbucks. I will tell you, I've kind of lost my love for Starbucks. I find myself going there much less often. Even if I do go, it's usually because I'm taking one of my kids and they're craving something. I generally don't even get anything. The magic of Starbucks, if you ask me, is kind of fallen off. And I think they're trying to bring that magic back, and I wish them well. Let's keep moving. Nashville drops from the number one commercial real estate investment market in this country, where they had been for 3 years in a row. Sunbelt markets across the Southeast maintain their post-pandemic expansion streak. Dallas won the leading spot as the most promising market for property and investor demand in 2025. So Nashville lost out to Dallas, but how far did they drop? They dropped much further than I would have anticipated. There was a major shakeup to the rankings of years past. Fellow Sunbelt market Nashville, which in 2023 became the first to claim the number one spot for 3 straight years, fell all the way to 5th place. Cooling growth in the Music City meant it was overtaken not only by Dallas, but also Miami, Houston, and Tampa, Florida. So it goes Dallas, Miami, Houston, Tampa, with Nashville falling all the way to number 5. Since the onset of the pandemic, markets in states such as Texas, Florida, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Georgia have dominated the annual rankings. So, still a great market to invest in. just not number one in the country this year. Let's keep moving. Denny's set to shutter 150 restaurants as U.S. dining industry struggles. America's Diner, as it calls itself, aims to slash poorly performing locations, about 10% of its total fleet. Denny's plans to close up to 150 restaurants by 2025. Officials of Spartanburg, South Carolina-based Denny's said they're closing 50% of those troubled eateries this year and the remainder next year. Denny's, as have other chains that are slashing their fleets, talked about how difficult the current macroeconomic environment is coming out of the pandemic and dealing with financially struggling consumers, particularly low-income ones. Cutting back spending in stores as well as in full-service restaurants. Denny's locations are also most concentrated in California, where there is now a high minimum wage for workers, increasing labor costs for restaurant operators. Denny's continues to be a victim of increasing competition from breakfast/lunch concepts like First Watch, Snooze, and AM Eatery. Although they continue to provide value pricing, their customer base, with a strong boomer generation, continues to age and look for better quality offerings. In addition to full-service competition, fast casual restaurants like Panera offer healthy options in drive-through convenience. People are figuring out what to do and how to manage their check. And you've heard it over and over again from many brands in the last few quarters, but consumers will go out less often. They will eat smaller portions or order less expensive items. We're seeing a lot more adults order kids' meals. So, often on the podcast, we update you on struggling retailers and restaurants. Denny's is joining that group. They are perceived to be a value option for sit-down breakfast and lunch. They have not been able to stay afloat. They've got a number of restaurants, 150, that are losing money and are soon to close. And it's just folks have less disposable income. The cost of everything has gone up so greatly. You've got to cut somewhere. And it sounds like their boomer customers are cutting out breakfast and lunch at Denny's. Next, Jelly Roll's new bar. We now know where it's going. Jelly Roll's Goodnight Nashville, which is the name of the bar, it will be located at 209 Broadway, which was the original concept called Bottled Blonde. The bar is planned for 5 stories with a 6th-floor open rooftop. The signage includes a skull wearing a crown that outlines the Nashville skyline and has 3 tabs that read burgers, spirits, and tattoos. You didn't see that coming, did you? Burgers, spirits, and tattoos. So at Jelly Roll's bar, you can get drunk and tattooed. The building is owned by Scottsdale-based Evening Entertainment Group. The project is set to cost $45 million. So another 5-story honky-tonk coming to downtown Nashville with Jelly Roll's name on it, and now booze and tattoos, all under one roof. Should be interesting to see. I'm rooting for him. I've told this story before, but when I first moved to Nashville, we ended up renting a home while ours was built. And immediately next to the home we were renting lived Jelly Roll, and with his wife Bunny. At the time, had no name recognition. No one really knew what it is they did. All they knew is they took that house, a big house, and they painted the entire interior of the house black. So I remember that, but I also remember, the neighbors were very snooty for whatever reason. They thought we were just renting there, and they didn't realize we were building a house nearby, whatever. So they kind of turned up their nose to us and weren't real respectful. And nevertheless, we were building a house much nicer than all the houses that surrounded us. They had no idea that that was happening, but that's neither here nor there. That's no reason to be nasty to people. Anyway, the only person in that area where we were renting that was actually kind to us was Jelly Roll. So shout out to Jelly Roll. Very good dude. Even before he was famous, he was a kind guy. Let's keep moving. What's driving the return to work or return to office requirements? Many organizations have championed better connectivity and collaboration as reasons for implementing more return to office policies. But new data suggests there may be a more nefarious reason. In fact, 1 in 10 companies are increasing in-office days as a way to push employees to quit, with half citing it as a strategy to avoid layoffs. So actually, when companies make their employees return to the office, they are often hoping some of them will quit in response. The return to office debate was recently thrust back into the spotlight after Amazon announced that employees would be required to return to the office 5 days a week starting in January. More than 1/4 of companies have already expanded return to office requirements this year, and an additional 12% expect to change their policies by the end of the year. Additionally, many companies own buildings or have long-term lease contracts and want to make use of the space. Finally, some companies simply don't trust their employees, or after experiencing a few employees taking advantage of work from home, they assume all employees are doing the same. So you've got a lot going on here. You've got desired employees quitting. You've got companies that own buildings and have long-term leases that want to get use out of those very expensive assets. And then you've also got employers that are not trusting their employees to really be disciplined and get the most output out of them when they work from home. All of those reasons are pushing a growing desire to get employees back to the office. I think the free ride is coming to an end. And I feel for y'all, the morning commute, is there any worse way to start your day with a bumper to bumper morning commute to the office? That really is soul crushing, and I do feel for people. Next, commercial real estate activity is picking up. I'm going to walk you through the hottest sectors. Commercial real estate transaction activity was picking up even ahead of the Federal Reserve's interest rate cut last month. With the recent rate cut and the expectation that more cuts will soon come before year end and into 2025, that's giving investors more confidence to move forward on deals. Despite some of the overbuilding that's occurred in both apartments and industrial, those are two property types high on investors' radar. Next, industrial outdoor storage and single-family rentals. So the argument here is the 4 sectors to keep an eye on: apartments, industrial outdoor storage, and single-family rentals. So if you're not familiar with industrial outdoor storage, this is simply land that you are able to store industrial equipment on, industrial supplies on. Many municipalities do not like outdoor storage. They prevent you from storing anything outside through the zoning code. So those properties that are zoned industrial and have a lot of land that can be used for that purpose, that is a growing sector. It's long been a niche sector, but now it's kind of becoming more mainstream. Single-family rentals have been around forever. So that's what's picking up in the commercial real estate activity. I will tell you that our business, that Beechwood Commercial Real Estate Brokerage, has really been on fire. We are closing out almost all of the inventory that we have listed before the end of the year. So now we're actively looking for more property to get sold, and that's what we're working on now because we have really cleared our inventory, and I think that's in direct response from increased demand in the market without really lending loosening up. Everybody wants to talk about interest rates. I would argue that the bigger challenge we have is the availability of financing. There are many people that would love to borrow money at market interest rates, and that money simply is not available to them. So not only do we like to see interest rates going down, we also want to see banks lending more freely. And that's the part we really haven't experienced yet. Most of the deals that we've seen get done over the last couple of years have been cash deals or seller finance deals because banks really put a halt on commercial real estate lending. As soon as that starts to free up, we're really going to have a strong marketplace to sell into. Now I'm going to give you a real brief update on the residential housing market. Prices for existing single-family homes across the U.S. hit their 15th consecutive record high. So 15 consecutive increases, a record high. But economists say there are signs of slowing growth. The cost of those houses increased 4.2% from a year ago, but the growth in those prices has slowed, and it's the slowest rate of annual growth since 2023. What that's saying is the last few years, prices have been going up by more than 4.2% per year, and that 4.2% is a number that's actually much lower than we come to expect. So while the prices continue to go up, they continue to go up at a smaller amount. The report doesn't fully account for the Federal Reserve's September rate cut and the succeeding economic data reports that have driven mortgage rates even higher. So all that means is all of this data is this is lagging data, right? So for the information that we have available to us, it does not yet incorporate the effects of the September rate cut. So we'll see if the rate cut has a measurable effect on the slowing growth in prices across the U.S. Nevertheless, I think it's very interesting with all of the drama that's gone on in the last 4 years, all of the interest rate issues, all of the issues in the federal government. The prices of single-family homes continue to go up, up, and up. So the folks that have been sitting it out thinking that there was going to be some type of pricing correction thus far have been proven wrong. Now, there is a difference between regions in the United States as well. The tale of two regions reflects significant affordability challenges in the West and South, where home prices surged in recent years and high mortgage rates priced out many potential buyers, whereas the Northeast and Midwest continue to benefit from relative affordability and less collective increase in prices over the last few years, but also more limited for sale inventory. So what this is saying is the West and the South already have very high prices, so those prices are growing at a slower rate, whereby the Northeast and Midwest had relatively lower prices, so now the growth in those prices is picking up. We used to live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, right? And that's a long story, but Milwaukee, Wisconsin was one of these markets where, things could be, prices of commercial real estate and residential real estate for that matter, on the coast could be skyrocketing, right? And the prices of property in Milwaukee would pretty much just stay flat. There really would not be any effect. So, when you see some of these regions that are going crazy, that doesn't necessarily mean that's equally distributed across the country. There are some markets that just don't move very much, and that's, I would say, more of a function of demand. But nevertheless, I always think it's interesting where you've got places like Nashville where a property's value can double in 5 years. That same property you put it in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, it's worth roughly the same as it was 5 years ago. So there's much less upside, and that's the brilliance of being a place where there's growth. As soon as you have growth in a marketplace, you are going to have appreciating asset values. If you stay in a place that's staying the same or even getting smaller, shrinking, expect your asset values to stay relatively flat. You're not going to have nearly as much appreciation to benefit from. You're really going to have to live off the monthly cash flow from those properties in those markets whose best years are behind them, which is exactly what's happened in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I think you could argue that's true of many of the blue cities across the country, like Philadelphia, like Chicago, like San Francisco, whereby all of their good years are behind them and the future is going to be on a downward trend. Now, I've got one story for you here, and then we'll wrap up the show. I appreciate you hanging in there with me. TGI Fridays is closing a quarter of their locations, and it is speculated that bankruptcy may be next. Fast casual restaurant chain TGI Fridays has closed about 50 of its U.S. locations in the past week as the nation's dining industry grapples with inflation and customers trimming their spending. They started with 213 locations about a week ago, and now they're at 163 locations. They started at 270 locations at the beginning of 2024. So at the beginning of the year, they were at 270. A week ago, they were at 213, and now they're at 163. Some shut locations mark an exit from these cities in total, including Columbus, Ohio, and Buffalo, New York. They don't have a single TGI Fridays left. The move comes as media reports say the restaurant chain is getting ready to file for bankruptcy protection. The continued abrupt closings of Fridays restaurants could make some damn good real estate available amid an extremely tight U.S. retail market. I think those properties will be snapped up in a heartbeat. A lot of them will be redeveloped completely. The vacated restaurants could also give new eateries a space to occupy quickly and cheaper than building a location from scratch. Even with the sharp uptick of retailer bankruptcies and store closings, the U.S. retail space market remains historically tight. The U.S. retail vacancy rate is now at 4.1%, with the country expected to continue to face a shortage of high-quality available space as the total amount of retail construction falls to a new multi-decade low in the third quarter. So we aren't building any retail space right now, which is keeping demand for the existing space high and vacancy at a very low 4%. Fridays has been sliding down the slope for a long time. If you look at the volumes, there's been a steady decline. At one time, Fridays was one of the hottest places in town, and everyone couldn't wait to go there, but they didn't evolve. In Texas, where Fridays has been based, the only remaining locations are at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. A filing for bankruptcy protection from creditors often gives companies the ability to renegotiate their real estate leases and exit an undesirable lease. So just this week, we've got Denny's announcing a number of store closings. We've got TGI Fridays announcing a huge portion of their portfolio will close. It is not going to get easier to be in the restaurant business. It is the most difficult business to be in. You know, and I talk about business to our clients all the time. And those clients that are in the restaurant business, I always give them their props. I really think it is the most difficult business to be in, not only from a risk standpoint, from a profitability standpoint, from like a lifestyle standpoint. You know, you have to be physically present at a lot of these restaurants the exact hours that you'd prefer to be home with your family. So it's very, very difficult from every angle. There is no harder business to be in than the restaurant business. You know where I'm putting number 2 on the list? I'm putting number 2 on the list, real estate development. You know, a lot of folks think real estate development is this glamorous way to make easy money. There's nothing glamorous about it. There's nothing easy about it. It takes forever. It's very frustrating. You're at the mercy of so many other people, not only at the municipal level, but your contractors, your lenders, your insurers. I mean, you really have to get everybody on your program in a way that you can get your project done as quickly as possible and stop the hemorrhaging of cash, because you go for years without any incoming cash. It's all going out. And then finally, at the end, you'll start generating a certain amount of cash flow and you'll try to turn that around. It is a very, very hard business to be into. You know, anybody that aspires to be a commercial real estate developer, I would recommend you go shadow one. You know, go work at one for a certain period of time and really understand all of the challenges that go into a role like that. I'm in the process of bringing a property out of the ground right now for my personal account, and it has really been a humbling experience. It is a difficult thing to pull off. So if you feel like you're the man, if you feel like you can do no wrong and you need to be humbled, if you need to humble yourself, go ahead, go buy some land and try to build something on it. I assure you it will be a humbling experience, but it will still be an easier experience than operating a profitable restaurant. And that's where we're going to leave it today, guys. There's a lot going on in politics. I'm sure everyone already has their mind made up on who they're voting for. I think I've made it pretty clear that I believe Donald Trump and the Republican Party ticket, with all of the all-stars that they have lined up to participate in his cabinet, I think they are by far the better option. And if they don't win, we are in real trouble. And I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks so much. As always, today's show was sponsored by Beechwood Commercial Real Estate Brokerage, your commercial real estate broker if you are a seller of commercial real estate in the Southeast. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you next week.